Hello everybody. My name is Joshua Sheffield, but you can call me Cack. I am with Mr. NATO and our and the National League Secretary Elias. And this time around, we have an actual organized podcast episode.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And
Okay, so
so today, we'll be talking about many topics. The one I want to start off with, in terms of topics, is the ending of Title 42 and
I
the
can
leaving
yeah,
of COVID restrictions.
I can actually talk about this one because I live quite close to the border. Um, I can say that honestly, like I can say that if every single illegal were deported, like literally over half of my high school would be deported
Wow. Okay.
because and a lot of these people do not speak English. They do not integrate into society.
Okay.
Okay. I mean,
So when the
shit
school
is
has to prove that they can produce English speakers, they quite literally they take all of the Asian kids, which are a very small minority in the school, and they make them and they tell them you're a foreigner, so you have to prove that you can speak English. And this pisses off the Asian kids because they've known English for years and they don't pull the Hispanics out and make them prove that they can speak English because they know they can't speak English.
Okay. To be honest, I can definitely see why they're pissed. I mean, I'd be pissed if I were put in that situation too. Um.
And what I have a problem with is the possibility of allowing in more illegals. Just like it hurts the economy because what ends up happening is it lowers wages across the board, and people like Texas for its affordability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening is when all of these illegals come in, people will just fire an American citizen and replace them with an illegal who's willing to work for like penny. And it's like slave wages. It's really low, and then this means that we can't protest the wages, or they'll just fire the American citizens and replace them with people who are willing to work for less. So, and I mean that's why I actually kind of support Abbott busing all these illegals over to other cities because what that does is well it gives them what they voted for.
I mean, kinda. I mean, it's the greatest policy move in immigration that we've ever seen. I mean, you've destroyed local Democrats' capabilities of winning re-election, right? New York, almost you look at every city, right, that we've started busing them to, Democrat approval ratings have just skyrocketed down. It has been a nuclear explosion for local Democrats in every way. Okay, if we look at besides Chicago, excluding Chicago, any election, right, across the country that we bust immigrants to, we've had a local election. It has been a Republican landslide, right? In county elections or anything, we move them to New York or pretty much anywhere, especially New York. We have won extraordinarily well. This is a great move. I mean, kinda does not summarize the geniusness of this decision. And you've seen Democrats moderate extremely more right wing and more hawkish on foreign policy, not foreign policy, sorry, immigration policy, right?
Oh yeah, and
I
Cruz just said to add on to what I was saying, the presence of immigrant barely adds any economic value due to the fact that barely any of them are employed. The presence of all these immigrants results in inflation of all goods, particularly in groceries and housing, which Americans are more impacted by. That is true. That is true, and also because they don't integrate into wider society, there's a lot of violence going on, especially between the Hispanics and the blacks. I hate to say it, but because the Hispanics just will not integrate into American society because there's so many of them, they form their own pockets and they tend to clash a lot. And they refuse to learn English, so their opportunities are pretty limited anyways. It's like let me put it this way, and this is why so many people get kind of pissed. So I'm gonna move to Mexico, right? I'm gonna move to Mexico. I'm gonna fly my American flag there. I'm gonna demand voting rights, refuse to learn Spanish, and send all of our money back to the US. And then I'm gonna call Mexican citizens bigots and racists because they want to send me back, right? Like that's how most Texans feel.
Oh, well,
Is
that.
that they get here and they demand voting rights, and then they don't contribute to the broader society. They're kind of leeches.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Lyeth, I gotta say you do bring up some good points. As for my opinion on it, I'm not exactly. uh, Well, I don't have a specific opinion, but if I were to put it as best I could without seeming out of context, um, I am not a fan of Title 42 uh being, what was the word,
It expires.
expired. um
Wow.
I certainly don't think we should be letting many people over the border over concerns, because with my opinion, I am concerned about uh uh drug smuggling, uh
Yeah,
cartels,
I
and
have I have a lot to say about that too. Actually, I might go on a separate tangent. I have a lot to say about this because I can say this from the perspective of like a Texan local.
mhm,
So when so part one big reason that a lot of Texans were so on board with the border policy was because there are children that get sex trafficked into the US. And Houston is the biggest hub for sex trafficking in the United States because it is so close to the border and because it has access to so many major highways like I 10 and I 45.
mm.
So it, and also these cartels, they, like you mentioned, they drug smuggle, they smuggle in shit like fentanyl, and they profit off of it. And I was not aware that like when we ended up deporting, like not deporting, but we ended up busing them into other cities. I actually wasn't aware of the impacts in those cities and how Democrat approval went down. But that's actually pretty cool.
Oh,
Mm.
it destroyed them. You've seen that local Democrats starting to call for stricter immigration. Actually,
Yeah, and honestly, I'm glad for that because like children should not be allowed to be trafficked into our border because the current border policy right now is like cartel members' wet dream. Like that's the best way
Yeah,
I can put it.
it's open borders. I mean, more open than what we usually have out of the past,
Yeah,
like, what, 5 presidencies.
that's
yeah,
not
and I mean,
the '90s and early 2000s. Well, or '90s especially was pretty open border.
yeah, and I mean, like, I'm all for legal immigration. I mean, my boyfriend is a legal immigrant from the Philippines, and he works hard. He learns English. He wants to be a nurse. I mean, he's integrated into American society very well. And I'm all for. I think there should be better channels for people who want to come here legally, but I have a huge problem with people who violate our borders and our national sovereignty by coming here. And I understand why they come here because I've had classmates who described the conditions back in Mexico, and honestly, they're kind of horrific. But the problem with letting in so many people over here is not only do they hurt real American citizens, they also cause a brain drain back in their own countries, which means that because they all just think, oh, I can leave and come here, there's no real reason to improve the conditions in their own countries. So their countries stay shitholes.
Mm-hmm. And I actually want to bring up something about the point about the brain drain. There was a while back when Mexico was cracking down on cartels and whatnot, and back when the Republicans were pushing for a stronger border, border policy, the president of Mexico actually made a public comment. It was on video too, I believe, that he was going to go on a smear campaign against Republicans. And I'm just sitting here like, dude, why don't you improve your own country
He's owned
so
by
we
the
don't
cartel.
have, yeah,
He's
like
owned by the
that's,
proving his own country is not good for him.
I mean, that's the problem because Mexican cartel's influence is so big that they can literally buy the president.
Yeah, it's
Nobody can do anything about it, and anybody who actively tries gets murdered,
I
gets
mean, I
kidnapped,
think that
executed.
yeah, Mexico is one of the most dangerous countries for journalists. Like so many of them go missing or turn up dead every year, and it's because they try to actually look into the cartels and
well, I think that the U.S. needs to be putting significant more pressure, and I think the U.S. should be sending military agencies down there to
yeah,
handle immigration crisis. And I think that we should put all the pressures physically possible to force Mexico to accept more American help and to wipe out the cartels in South America.
yeah, and actually at one point, Mexico's top cop was like, um, Mexico's equivalent to like the FBI or the CIA. It was like one of their big law enforcement agencies, one of their domestic agencies. And they had this really prominent cop who was working with prominent members in the agencies in our country to try and crack down on the cartels, and they found out that even this top cop was taking bribes from the cartels like actively. So
Yeah,
Mexico is unbelievably corrupt.
and that's another point. Nobody is safe. Nobody is safe from corruption. Not in the U.S., not in Europe, and definitely not in Mexico.
I mean, you mean safe from like cartel influence? Because
Yeah,
I don't really think.
nobody is safe. Even
Well,
people who appear to be
I
good are
mean,
probably getting bribed.
Yeah,
I
and
I find it hard to believe that like the UK Prime Minister is like getting bribed by the Mexican
Yeah,
cartel.
they're not getting.
yeah.
No way the Mexican
I
cartels
mean,
could have that big of an influence.
but no. But it's just like I don't think influence hits everywhere. I mean, if we look at the U.S., I'd say it's probably a very uncorrupt country for the most part. Most any corruption you'll see in the United States is inwards corruption. It is from itself. You don't see too much outwards corruption.
I mean, unless you qualify George Soros as outwards corruption because he's Hungarian, but he's also an American citizen, unfortunately. I have
Unfortunately,
a lot of very negative opinions about George Soros, but
I think most of us in on here have negative opinions on Soros.
yeah, because I mean, he funds shit that destroys the quality of life for so many Americans. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's actively a detriment to the country,
I
and I
mean,
think
you could also say that about the Rockefellers and J.P. Morgan.
yeah, you could say that about a lot of people, but George Soros happens to be the most prominent one simply because of how much money he pours into the Democrat Party. So
That's where I find most of my grievances, and with the government. Um, well, the Rothschilds are British.
yeah, the Rothschilds are British. I mean, I don't really care what goes on in Europe. They can.
Well, no, we should deeply care what happens in British politics, especially European politics. They have a direct impact on us.
I would argue it's
If,
actually the other way around because the U.S. is currently the leading global power.
yeah.
But like, if they go to
That
war,
doesn't
like
mean
yeah,
we shouldn't be
go to war,
non-involved in everywhere else, right?
yeah. I mean,
Being
like
a
if they go
leader,
to
it doesn't
war,
mean everyone should only be interested in you. It means that you need to be interested in your allies, your teammates. You can be the leader without necessarily only being able to be care about yourself.
Yeah. I think the ally I'm currently most interested in right now is India because China is currently damming up the Ganges River that leads into India and both countries need the water, right? So if they end up going to war because they both need this vital resource, then that means that could very easily escalate into World War III, and the population of both China and India combined is just more than the population of the entire world during World War II. So I mean that would easily be the worst war in human history. So that's I'm not as concerned about Europe right now because I'm more concerned about what's happening in South Asia.
Well,
Because
we should
South
be
Asia,
concerned about everywhere, right?
yeah,
In World War I, for example, the Germans, they decided that most of their ally base was they were going to stick in Europe, right? They were going to kind of build allies in Europe and Europe alone, right? And they were
then in World War II they decided
globally.
let's go to Asia.
They influenced Asia, but they weren't as significant. America,
Yeah,
if you look at Americans' influence and how we've gotten so powerful, it is our willingness to work with any country around the world. And the only way we can keep our power and global world hegemony is through influencing other country. China is doing trying to do something very similar to us as we did after World War II, right?
the
They're
problem
building up
is
Africa, and if
yeah, the
they
problem
build up Africa, they will be able. We might not be too interested in them. They will be a world power because Africa is going to become much more populated in the growing centuries.
yeah,
Nigeria
but
has
the
the highest growth rate in the globe.
yeah, and the problem with China though is that the allies it has in Central Asia, in Central and Western Asia. I mean, like, yeah, those leaders like the Chinese money that they get, but those populations absolutely despise China because of the Chinese genocide of Uyghur Muslims. And China's also done a pretty great job at pissing off other Southeast Asian countries like Micronesia and the Philippines because they went to the Philippines and basically said if you don't cut ties with Taiwan, um, you're not going to be very happy at what happens to the hundreds of thousands of Filipino nationals that live in Taiwan. So they've also they China's done a great job at making a lot of people very mad at it. Honestly,
They can make the populace mad. Most populists don't like China, but as long as the leaders fall in line, that's all that matters, right?
yeah. But if
If
the leaders, the problem is in the countries where the leaders essentially end up creating a coup. That's where a problem hits. Is if enough of the population gets pissed off enough to actually do something about it.
Yeah, but the
So
likelihood, most populists don't really care for most politics, right?
yeah,
Um, if like people have their strong feelings, but populists are, pardon my language, not very bright when it comes to foreign policy. They see things very short term. They have these short term minded policies. They have about a year of foresight, and then they give up. Right? Look at
yeah,
Vietnam. At the beginning of Vietnam, we had full support. End of Vietnam, they hated it. They despised it. Right? Those that did support it, they opposed it at the end. Right? Iraq War, they loved the Iraq War. Right? As soon as Iraq War started ramp it down a bit, they hated it. Afghanistan, same thing. You see this with almost every war. Uh, most publics really like war at the beginning and then hate them once they have to start. Um, once the media gets involved, at least, because the media has this deep hatred for America and is typically bribed very easily by the
yeah.
Chinese, and you see this globally, right? Um, the media is very easily influenced by the Chinese government in almost every country in the world. Indian media is even getting bribed now by the Chinese to make the Indian government seem worse when it comes to their foreign policy against uh, against the Chinese. It's a very common thing, and when we get to a world war, if the media sides with the government, it won't end well for us.
Honestly, I do kind of disagree that the media is bribed by China. I think it's more like the media just falls in line with what makes them money. I mean, their businesses, their bottom line will be profit. So
As
I
long
think
as the
they
money starts, as long as the money rolls in, man, they'll do whatever.
yeah, pretty much. Which is why you have stupid shit.
Well, I'd have to disagree. I mean, the New York Times, right? They've stopped covering true stories, and they've started only covering what the establishment really wants them to cover, right? And it
Yeah.
has tanked their reviews, tanked them in any subscribers. They're destroyed, right? But they're still doing it. Economics is not the only thing people care about, right? If this was so, Bud Light would have already given up. They haven't, right? Most companies would have not sided against conservatism because these people have values. They have moral positions that they want to push on you, right? They want to push on the American public or publics around the world. And they don't really care how popular it makes them or how unpopular it makes them, right? Because they know that in the long run, they'll win because of this opinion that, well, we won't do anything because it's going to economically fail them, right? Economics is not the only thing that matters. True morality is. The morality of what you're doing is the top focus for liberals and should be the top focus for conservatives or libertarians or whatever.
Well, this was
Economics
certainly.
does play a major role, and I do think that I think it's more than just morality and economics. If I'm being honest, I mean, yeah, I am kind of focusing in on one factor here, but I think there's a lot going on when we discuss this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Um. Actually,
Joshua, you want okay?
another thing, another topic that I want to get into is the Trump sexual assault charge.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So in the courts recently, this I forgot her name, but this
uh,
one woman made a book about Trump sexually assaulting her.
I think E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah, I think that's it. And then I think there was some legal back and forth, and the judge, the courts found Trump liable for sexual assault. I mean,
I mean, okay, I'm all for justice if it really did happen. I haven't really looked into this, but what aggravates me about this specifically is how there's so much focus on this and no focus on Tara Reid. If I mean, if we're gonna be honest here, like both cases deserve equal attention at least, and I think it's definitely been politicized, and the media doesn't want to cover it because they're trying to push a specific agenda at
yeah.
this point.
Uh, from what I heard, and this is what I heard, I'm not saying this is truth. So, from what I heard specifically, I heard in when Eugene Carroll, was that her name?
E. Jean Carroll, yeah.
Eugene Carroll. Oh my lord. Anyways, from what I heard, when she testified, she said she had no recollection of it, even though she wrote about it in her book.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, I feel like she went for civil court because she knew she wouldn't be able to find him guilty in a criminal court. I mean, they found him liable, but that's not the same thing as guilty, like a
Yeah.
criminal court. That's vastly different.
I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I'd rather just wait and see.
So would I.
Like because we've already seen this before, and like with sexual assault accusations and cases that go through. Like for example, Amber Heard. That's the biggest example I can think of, and other cases.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'd rather just hold off on that. and this person is asking to be on stage. I say no. He asks why. Because we are doing podcast and he is not allowed to be on podcast.
Damn.
So yeah. In other news, Elon Musk has said that he may be stepping down from Twitter and may be putting in a new CEO.
So I think it's less of he's stepping down from Twitter entirely and more of once he's not CEO, he can focus on actually improving what like the product he's making.
Yeah.
And he did say a while ago he was going to step down as CEO once he found someone foolish enough to take the job.
I like how he added foolish.
Yep.
Ironically enough, there have been a few people who have been floated around who's going to be like the next CEO. But one I have found is this person. Hold up, let me get them. Let me pull them up here. Her name is Linda Yaccarino. One of the
I heard
articles about her.
she's been attacked by both people on the left and the right. I'd personally rather wait and see what she's actually going to do before forming an opinion on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's gotten shat on by the right for being a WEF associate. She's gotten shat on by the left for her work with like Trump. She's gotten she's gotten shat on equally by both sides. So I don't really have an opinion other than everyone already hates her. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I mean Elon Musk did pretty subpar. I mean, a few things he did well better than others. And then there was Twitter Blue, which I'm not paying for, thankfully enough.
Mm.
But I'm really, I'm not. Well, well, distrustful isn't the right word, but I'm certainly kind of iffy about having a globalist as a Twitter CEO.
Yeah, I
Because they are or were, I don't know if they still are, a part of the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum is has some very controversial comments and stuff. So I'm not a fan of that, and I'm not a fan of having globalists in charge of Twitter. But I mean, hey, we'll just have to.
But
I just want to wait.
Twitter's a global company. They have media all around the world. It makes no
I
sense
think
to be a nationalist for America when the company is a global company.
yeah, and I think he picked her specifically because of her work in economics and he's hoping she'll bring more advertisers onto the platform so that then he can really start pulling in a profit. Because at the end of the day, Elon Musk is a businessman. That's
Yes.
that's how I feel about it. I'm gonna wait and see
Mhm.
how she does. I don't want to make a judgment before I actually see her work, you know. But
Yeah.
if she does start cracking down on like all the censorship and shit, then shit, dude.
Yeah. Hold on. Mhm. Uh. Well, yeah. Hmm. Oh yeah, the topics. Sorry, I kind of zoned out for a moment.
Nah, you're good.
One of the things I do want to talk about though is the writer's strike.
Okay, I actually don't know about this one because I haven't been keeping up with stuff as much lately due to finals. So please,
I'm aware of it. I'm
So
aware of this stuff.
the Writers Guild of America has begun a bunch of writers for like TV shows and movies and whatnot have have begun strikes over like unfair compensation and just not so great treatment.
They have the squishiest jobs in America. I know it's hard to say, but I really don't feel bad for them. It's a bunch of coastal elites that are crying about that they aren't getting paid $30 billion a year, right? Boo-hoo, go cry about it. I feel no sympathies for them, considering that we have an average wage of a plumber, right, that controls our sewer system, right? It's $60,000 a year. Electricians are $55,000 a year. These are completely unfair, considering these people clearly work much harder. They have higher rates of death. And then you have these coastal elites saying, "Oh, boo-hoo! I only make $100,000 a year." They have the squishiest jobs in America. They write on a piece of paper and they have to think, right? It's a easy squishy job, and they really don't need any more compensation or money.
You see,
I don't have much to say about this one.
you see, I really don't. You know, the the thing is, right, is that there's this whole like thing about how directors make the movie and whatnot, make the stuff in charge of everything. Is directors are the one above all. People who can make or break a movie. I disagree with that. The writers are the ones that make the movie and make the whatnot, and shows are getting canceled because of it. Well, not
They're getting
not
canceled because
canceled
they're making awful shows.
online.
No, they're
Shows
just making
are
awful shows.
yeah.
They keep trying to push this liberal agenda. People don't want it. I mean,
I
and so they're making cuts. It's a simple economics, right? You are acting extraordinarily liberal. People do not want you to be act extraordinarily liberal, and it's failing them. Now they're getting cut. Yeah, it's they're costing Hollywood money. Hollywood is now taking the money that they are losing from the writers. It's a simple cause and effect, right? You do something, you know it fails, you keep doing it over and over again, it keeps failing over and over again, right? I don't feel bad for you, right? If every time you push this button, right, someone dies and you keep pushing the button, expecting it to change, I don't really feel bad for you if you get arrested. It's they're illogical and they won't accept the consequences of their actions.
now you see now with the thing about this whole liberal agenda, right? If it's like I really don't see a lot of this whole liberal agenda and whatnot um uh being pushed so much, being pushed so hard. And I find a lot of people making those arguments are like because uh, I feel a lot of the people are making the arguments because it kind of is like for example, uh The Last of Us episode 3 going down a Bill and Frank story, which Bill and Frank in the video games are a gay couple. And in
Okay.
TV, it straight follows the games. They're a gay couple. And really it was that got them mad, talking about this liberal agenda. I don't see I don't see a whole lot of the liberal agenda being pushed, or being pushed as hard. Like, sure, there may be a little bit of bias in Hollywood. There definitely is. I'm not saying there isn't. Uh, but in terms of political bias, I don't see it. Me
Okay.
personally, I just
So
don't see it a whole lot.
so let's. Do you want me to name you a couple examples of how there's liberal agenda? I'll list you a few. Okay. So
Go
I'll go
ahead.
through some of the more popular ones. So Harry Potter, Dumbledore is gay, right? Why? There's no reason really. Just really wanted to appeal to the more liberal crowd. Um,
Well,
Lord of
that's
the
the
Rings.
well.
We have
That's
lesbian. We
man,
have
my
lesbian orcs
man.
now.
That's the problem. It's Harry Potter.
Yeah. No. I'm not done listing. I got a couple. I got like we're gonna roll with them, right? So we have lesbian orcs now in Lord of the Rings. Um. Uh. Well, let's go through a few others. I mean, and I would like to respond to your Last of Us, right? And then I'll get back to listing some. Um. Just because in the video game there was like if you read the monologue, it says someone was gay. Doesn't mean we need 45 minutes of a 10 episode or 11 episode, I don't remember the exact number, show needs to be dedicated to it. It was not a main focus of The Last of Us that he was gay. It really wasn't. It was a small part, sure, but it's this over pushing of it. That's the issue, right? You'll take these, they're gay in like a book, right? For like one sentence. And then we have to watch 3 episodes of them kissing men. We can go with Netflix, right?
I,
Hollywood writers wrote Cuties, a disgusting movie. Um,
Everybody can agree it's disgusting. Almost everybody, and the ones who don't are just weird. They push them away.
you mean Netflix? Netflix didn't think it was weird. Um,
They're Netflix. They're known for making shitty originals.
the Bros show that came out and then that the Hollywood elitists were mad about that it didn't do too well. They pushed it in I forget it. It's that black family from Disney Plus. Hmm, I forget its name. That one. We have Blues Clues being gay. We have all these shows being gay. Do you want more? Do I have to sit here for an hour and a half listing them off, thinking?
I wouldn't
Or
want you to.
I would rather not, but I can if it's going to validate my point. But I listed you 5. I think that's pretty reasonable. If you need more, I can.
I mean, honestly, when it comes to like gay people and shows, I don't really care that much. Because like, okay, you can marry who you want. I don't care. Where I have a problem with the LGBT shit is where they start transing kids. But beyond that, adults can do whatever the fuck they want. Where I start to have a problem with entertainment pushing more like a leftist bias is when they misrepresent America as a fundamentally racist nation. And while um, we do have some kind of baggage in the past, like slavery and racism and internment camps, depending on which racial group we're talking about, which ethnic group we're talking about. I mean, that's where I have a problem because you have kids watching those shows and believing America really is a fundamentally racist nation, like the rerun of the Proud Family. Like the original Proud Family was good.
That was good.
But I have I would say I would focus more on the racial stuff to argue your point than oh there's than like but yeah, I think they are overdoing it with the gay stuff sometimes because like I think they're trying to pander because they think that's what'll pull in the money. They want woke virtue points. Meanwhile, they advertise in China. They remove any prominent black characters from their posters in China because China's very racist.
I mean the racial thing is an issue,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's
You know,
but the LGBTQ thing, right? is a targeting of our kids, right? One targets America, one targets the individual kids of our nation, right?
Yeah,
One
like I
one is
said,
one is
I have
sexually weird, and one pushes an ideology.
yeah,
There's a
like
big difference.
yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it if some of it wasn't so sexually charged or if they weren't like pushing this drag queen shit. Like like I said, I'm a full supporter of I'm a supporter of gay marriage. I'm a supporter of adults doing whatever they want to. Like an adult man can chop off his dick if he wants. That's his prerogative as long as he doesn't come into the bathroom and try to rape me like they seem to be wanting to do to 10-year-old girls. But where I have a problem is, like I said, where I have a problem as a woman is when these trans women try to come into the bathroom with me or when they start trying to trans kids. Like I have a problem with the whole trans thing. That's where my support ends. LGB is cool. TQ plus plus is not.
And I also want to bring another point. Uh, most of the people who okay, when I hear people say liberal, or when I hear people talk about, we're calling this this liberal, calling some people liberal. Uh-huh. What is liberalism today, or what liberalism has been confined to today, is not really what liberalism is.
Yeah, I
It's not.
mean,
It's
I may have said liberal
so
once or twice, but I think there's a distinct difference between like liberals and leftists,
yeah, yeah.
especially like
So I kind of want people to understand here that these so-called liberals, these people that are defined as liberals, that are pushing all this, stuff about, whatever, or pushing hard biases with an agenda, are not what is by definition liberals. They're not
yeah,
liberals
because
by definition, only by name. They're
yeah, because the
more
whole
merely progressive fascists.
yeah, because the whole like far left push for transgenderism. I mean, if you look at the actual statistics regarding transgender kids, over 90%, like literally like anywhere from 80 to 90% of boys that are quote unquote gender dysphoric end up growing out of it by the time they're an adult, and then they realize that they were just gay. So it's quite literally what Iran does, where they trans all of their gay men to make them straight, and which is so I view the far left's push on that as an attack of all. It's like an attack on all of the actual liberal pillars of thought, which is people deserve to be able to love who they love without the state getting involved in marriage.
Mm,
That's kind of my view on it. I'm I'm not like I would have been a centrist if the left did not go batshit. That's kind of where I am right now. I would have been a centrist if the left did not go batshit.
this has always kind of been the leftist ideals and plans, right? You could see this in the 2000s when they opposed multiple of amendments that would have stopped issues like this, right? Not be and they said they agreed with the amendments, but they just said it wasn't a worry, right? The Democrats continuously they've always had this plan, right? If you look through it throughout the centuries, it always seems to be a continuous plan, right? The direct actions that they choose, the next stepping stone comes from, right? We originally said that we need to help the gay community. The next step is that okay, fine, love is love, right? We accept gay marriage. Then they start pushing this trans stuff. It's as a stepping stone, right? That's my issue, is that they continuously promised us, oh, we won't push it anymore, right? This is the final step we want, and then they pushed it again, right?
Yeah,
It
I can see that personally. I think I can see that, but I do think there is a reasonable center. I think there is a point where it is reasonable, and there's a point where it stops being reasonable. And I'm fully okay with like a man wants to marry a man, fine. They're both adults, they can do that shit. an adult wants to cut off his dick or a woman wants to chop off her breasts if she's like 22 or something, fine. Yeah, she's an adult. She can do that. I like I said, I have a problem when it starts to target children, which is what they're doing. And I have a problem when it seeps into education, when it seeps into teachers. And I think the pendulum is probably going to swing back the other way and it's going to be quite ugly. Because conservatives have a huge fertility advantage over liberals. Conservative women have more children on average. So I definitely think that within the next few decades, there's going to be a huge shift. And we can just kind of see where that goes. I don't know how ugly it'll get between now and then, though. At least politically.
At least politically.
Politically.
I gotta say, my prediction is that we're most likely going to see. Most likely, we may see, like, you know, we may see more of a social divide in terms of like progressivism and conservative. You know, that divide will probably get more steep.
Yeah,
that
is political. That is political polarization, though, and there's even political polarization that happens between the parties. Like you could put our two Texas senators in the same room, and they probably wouldn't agree on shit because Cruz is a Tea Party conservative, and McCormick likes to market himself as a little more center of the road. He likes to market himself that way, but the but the point is that, and also you have AOC and Nancy Pelosi. I mean, like those two shouldn't be in the same party. I mean, I hate both of them, but they shouldn't be in the same party.
I hate Nancy more so. Too old to be in government, man.
Yeah, I hate
almost all of our politicians are too old to be in government.
They are. There really should have been a maximum age limit, but I don't think the founding fathers realized that literal great grandparents would want to be in Congress because the life expectancy back then was not as good. So I think but like Congress isn't going to vote for shit that decreases their power.
Yeah. I feel like when much of
we really should have had term limits for Congress to prevent career politicians, because I don't think the founding fathers foresaw career politicians either.
NATO, dude, you gotta be in your room.
Do I gotta be in my room?
Yeah, I heard some buzzing from your phone.
Oh, I know. I was getting a call. That's why I had to go down.
Oh.
So you guys don't have to listen to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but I feel. Yeah, but my whole thing on career politicians, I don't exactly like career politicians. No, I certainly don't like how old we have people. You know Senator Strom Thurmond? That dude was in government to 103 or 102.
Yeah, like Dianne Feinstein should not be in politics. Like freaking Mitch McConnell should not be in politics. Like
Mitch McConnell should definitely be in politics.
He should definitely not be in politics.
Bro's too damn old.
No, he is not.
Everybody's too damn old.
No, they're not.
Pelosi's 89.
Look, I don't necessarily like a bunch of old people running my government, but when the alternatives are not the brightest radicals, right? I sadly have to say I'd rather the establishment that seems a lot more moderate and logical than these new conservatives.
Okay, and who do you think is creating this polarization? Who do you think are creating these radicals?
The radicals are creating these radicals. I mean, the Trump wing of the party created all these problems, right? And so did the Bernie wing. The Bernie and the Trump wing radicalized America, where instead of the most right you could get was like a libertarian, and the most left you could get was a social democrat, right? Those were your left and your right.
And now we have commies and fascists. now we have commies.
We have these practical neo-Nazis and these Stalin apologists. We have these evil people in our Congress now, and I would rather the establishment that are 80 years old than these 20-year-olds that have 3 brain cells and are like, well, guys, black people aren't that
Oh
cool,
man.
or Stalin wasn't that bad. Like, I'm sorry, the establishment's just clearly better when our options are weighed.
I'll need to chill, dude.
I'm
Dino and
great.
Cruz are currently rooting for your downfall, Mr. NATO. How do you feel about it? They want you off the
They can-
stage.
Radicalized, polarized, radicalized uni party, bro.
Oh, you know what they can do? They can go cry about it. They can go kick rocks. That's what they can do.
Dino just mentioned being casual, saying, "Get this guy out the stage. Fuck this guy."
Here's what you can do. Dino, go kick some rocks. Go cry about it. Realism wins in the end. I'm sorry.
I do kind of I do kind of agree with you when you say that like radicals would be a pretty shitty group to run the government, but I feel like it would be better if we had not allowed the left to seep their way into politics. I mean, there was actually a study done that found that a substantial amount of social studies professors at high level universities were Marxists. And that is
Yeah.
why children are not being taught about the failures of Marxist ideologies.
We never should have gotten rid of the Communist Control Act. I completely agree.
I mean, you have teachers who won't hang the American flag in their classroom and who make their children pledge to the frickin' pride flag. Like, they shouldn't even have a flag. They're not a fucking country. But, you know.
I mean, the Nation of Islam had a flag, and they weren't a country.
They should not have a flag that is widely used if they're not a country. Or if they're not
I
trying
have
to
to
be.
completely disagree. I think that, like Catholics, for example, we don't really have necessarily a country per se, but we have Vatican City. The Vatican flag is our religious flag.
The
I think
Vatican
most
City
religions have
is
similar.
Yep,
autonomous.
and the Pope is the sole human. What, leader? Would leader be the right word for Christianity and all Christians? Since isn't the Pope like speak for like like connecting Christians to God in a way
Mm.
ordained
I
by
mean,
God?
I'm honestly, I'm not the most religious, but I but the Vatican City is, and I do know what is autonomous and what is not. I know geography. I can tell you that. And there's like 5 extremely tiny autonomous regions in Europe, which are they're like unbelievably small amounts of land, which is Andorra, Liechtenstein, Monaco, San Marino, and
Liechtenstein.
Vatican City.
Doesn't Liechtenstein have like the smallest population? Like what, 30 people?
I think so, but they're autonomous, so you know.
Yeah, a literal tax haven. That reminds me of that one video of like, you know, European history be like. Hold up, let me pull that up.
God. Okay, so wait, what was this topic, anyways?
Wow, we
Wait,
went a far ways from
we went
wars.
way far off topic. Jesus Christ, we went from writer strike to Vatican City to Liechtenstein. Okay, France protests. That was the next one.
Okay, yeah.
Let's
Oh,
let's try and
a
get back on
controversial take. I know
Oh,
y'all
hey,
thought it was bad
McConnell's
before.
here.
Ooh,
McConnell left.
it's about to get even worse for y'all.
Yeah,
They
so
already
the
have
France
body-
protests. So, yeah, on the thing of the France protests, I can see where they're coming from.
I can't. Nope. They're very. I think anyone that protests is just kind of.
Protesting the pension. They're
Yep,
upping.
I
They're
completely disagree.
upping the age of retirement.
Yep, I
To
completely
what?
agree. I think it needs to be raised to 70.
78?
No, they're raising it 2 years. They're raising it to 64. They can. They're still below the U.S. I think the U.S. We're currently destroying our national our national debt is just getting plummeted down, right? Because
Honestly,
we are we have this
if we got rid of
because
entitlement spending like Social Security and Medicare, I think like literally every other area of our budget is a budget surplus.
that would be over half our budget. If we got rid of all welfare, I believe that's 62%. I could be off though. 62% of the budget would be gone.
Yeah, and then I think the
We
third
would
biggest thing
actually
is military spending. But I honestly I'm
no.
okay with military spending because that's uh,
Military spending as an individual thing is not by itself the top. That would be Social Security. Social Security
yeah,
is obliterately at the top.
yeah. But
Then
I think
following
middle
behind military.
military spending is like third or fourth though.
Yeah, military isn't like cheap. I'm not saying it is, but it's
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
All the
Let's
welfare
get back
programs
on
are
topic now,
extraordinarily.
fellas.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
I think this is pretty on topic. We're talking about Social Security and welfare
Y'all
when we're
went,
talking about
y'all went,
protests.
y'all went. We went from the French protesting a retirement
To the
age
American
raise
national
to,
debt.
to national
Mm,
debt and U.S. government spending. That
Okay.
is,
yeah,
we went
that's very
far off the
intertwined.
topic.
I really wouldn't say so. I would say they're very intertwined because I think it says something, right? I think it says something about America. It says that people would rather destroy their own country than slightly make less money. I think it says something very deeply about Western society as a whole. These old people would
Oh
rather waste
my
days out of
God,
their time
who's
because they're
letting
making
this?
slightly less money.
Who's letting him cook?
Making slightly less money. I truly don't feel bad. The age of retirement needs to be raised to 70, and you need to tie it to life expectancy. Life expectancy has grown exponentially larger, right, since the early 50s, right, when a lot of these social entitlement programs kind of took into place, or for America, the 40s, right? They have grown very high, and we've kept it the exact same. It is going to murder us. We cannot afford it, and it will destroy us, and it's only going to get worse. More baby boomers are going into it, and it is destroying us even more.
I know. We really shouldn't even have entitlement spending. I completely disagree with the Social Security Medicare, but I think looking at France is important because I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something similar crop up in the US, honestly.
We should abolish it, and if not abolishment, I want to raise it to 70 and tie it to age. Completely reasonable. I think the French should do something very similar, and I think he should stand strong against these French protesters. If he truly wants to save his country and he cares about his
Me,
country more than he cares about himself, I think the only necessary thing you can do is to fight off these entitlement programs. These entitlement programs are the reason nations die. They are disgusting. They are awful for the country. They provide nothing. So you make slightly more money as an old person. You are
Jesus,
not
alright.
making profit. We
Man.
need to make massive reforms or complete abolishment of it. And we need to strengthen the family. These old people should have their kids watch over them. That's who should be taking care of them, not the government. The government is not your parent. They're not your kids.
I
They are
I
the
agree.
government. They're here to lead us, and that is their job. Their job is not
I
to provide us to
okay.
live.
Can I kind of interject here a little bit? So
Yeah,
I actually agree with this, and I think this is part of the reason why I kind of disagree with how much traditional wives are attacked because like once I make the money and I can settle down with like my husband, I do want to be a traditional wife because I do not believe that schools, which are government run institutions, have any business in the moral formation of my child. Quite frankly. Like
yeah.
they have no business in the moral formation of my child. And the problem with the breakdown of the nuclear family is that when there's an absence of the father, it's been proven to have a very damaging effect, especially on young men. Young men
Oh, I can definitely
overwhelmed
attest to
by father.
that personally. My parents are divorced.
Yeah. And if a man does not have and if a young man does not have a strong father figure in the home and a present maternal figure, I would argue though that the presence of a strong father figure is much more important to a man's development than a mother. Like yeah, mothers are important and provide a lot, but I would argue that men really really need a father. And that is why we need the nuclear family. And that is also why I hated that's also why I hate the way divorce is so incentivized in our current society, because it encourages the breakdown of the family. And what that leads to is higher rates of homelessness, higher rates of drug use, higher rates of violent crime, and that's just so many other problems stem from that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I agree with that, because in Asian societies, I mean, children take care of their elders. I think the I think where the problem starts to rise is, like in Japan, people stopped having kids, and like in China, people stopped having kids, although that was the one child policy. But now that they've gotten rid of the policy, no one wants to have kids because kids are expensive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now we
Yeah,
have to
I
re-incentive having children, because now we have a generation of women who don't want to have kids in America. And we're trying to supplement that with mass immigration. But the problem is that so many of these immigrants have values that are not compatible with America's. And they come from cultures that have no respect for us. Okay, I'm done on my tirade, but
yeah,
that's kind
and I feel like why people are not having as much children as they used to is due to one, always having to work so much to afford things that are slowly becoming unaffordable.
Yeah, and also you have, I mean, I've heard many girls my age say that their mothers told them, wait till you're older to have children. My mother told me, don't wait as long as I did to have children, because she desperately wanted children, but she waited till she finished medical school. And women have a clock on their fertility years. So what ends up happening is that these women get to their 30s, and they realize, and they try having kids, and they it's horrible. I mean, they ruin their bodies and they inflict horrific trauma on themselves, because they have miscarriage after miscarriage. So I'm not waiting to have children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make the most of my younger years, and then once my kids leave the house, I'm going to keep working, basically. But because like I said, I think I don't think essentially a government run institution has any business in the moral formation of my child. And the American education has degraded so much since the 80s that I would honestly prefer to either put my children in a Catholic private school or homeschool them myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at right now, as just from the perspective of like a tech sentiment.
Yeah, I agree. We need
And
to
and also
privatize schools more.
Cruz mentioned having children requires time to socialize, which is becoming increasingly rare with Netflix and shit that makes dudes waste their time. And that actually is true, because if you look at friendships, the amount of people who said that they had no close friends between men and women, like from 1980 to now, the friendship decline is much more pronounced in men. And a big reason is because of social media. Because yeah, internet interaction is great and all, and you can learn a lot, but the problem comes when people use that to try and supplement real human interaction, and humans are a tribal species at the end of the day. So I mean, it just doesn't work, because we're programmed to go out and socialize with the tribe. And also you have I think the term is hoflation, where men have said that they have to work like 5 times as hard to get a woman that's not as good as their grandmother was. So like they have to work 5 times as hard as their grandfathers to get a woman that is like a fifth of the quality.
Yeah, I feel like a part of the influence of this is well, a part of the reason why there are not as many as relationships or whatnot, the dating scene is so bad is because of hookup culture.
Yes, that's why I've never gotten involved in hookup culture. I mean, I strictly want to save myself for marriage, get married and have children, and that's pretty much it. I mean, and I mean you see the influence of feminism is so bad that you see actual traditional housewives getting harassed by other people. And like
Yeah.
and I think that says something about the breakup, like the breakdown of the nuclear family.
Yeah, and because of like hookup culture, and because of the enabling of cheating and the enabling of cucks, the enabling and supporting of cheating and cucks and whatnot is because of it. I've strayed away from the dating scene. Like
Yeah,
I will not date.
and like there's a reason I am dating a foreigner because he's also intensely conservative because western men have not only lost their drive to be protectors, it's also that they have kind of abandoned their own western values. I mean, like my boyfriend I would say is more acts like more like an American. I mean, he's very pro gun, he's very he's also quite pro life. He's, I mean, I would argue he's actually more conservative than me in some ways, but and but he's from the Philippines, which is the only major Christian nation in Asia. It's like 97% Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's and like I mean, in the Philippines they very heavily emphasize two-parent homes. Asian homes have very low divorce rates, and um and I mean, they say if you have sex you're going to get married. Like you're going to get married. So like there's no hoeing around there cuz hoeing around equals a lifelong commitment in that country. And also Cruz brought up a good point um which was about the sexual revolution, condoms and porn, cuz what that did was it took away the link between sex and having children. And I think when you unlink those two, it opens the gateway to essentially what's the word? I'm looking for a very specific word. Um, gluttony, sexual gluttony,
Mm-hmm.
especially, and I
Lust?
mean that's especially creates a
Are you
problem for
looking for the word lust?
lust. Yeah, but it's also indulging in the lust, excess indulgence. There we go. And I mean that has a major effect I think on women because women are more likely to pair bond. So I think it's very damaging to women when they sleep around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think incentivizing that has damaged both sexes horribly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alongside encouraging children to mutilate their genitals, you know.
I I feel you you I always find it funny. I always find it ironic when I find posts on the internet that are like that are from females that 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 say they want a man but can't get one due to how many people they've slept around. And I'm like, nobody wants a woman that has slept around like 30, 50 people.
Yeah,
Like
I
my
mean,
preference in a person is like if you got more than one body count, we're not dating.
yeah, and like that I also have the same standard for men. I mean, I don't want a man who has slept around because to me that signifies a serious lack of self-restraint and morality. So that's why like my boyfriend's a virgin, so and he hasn't slept with other women. So to me that signifies he has some self-restraint and he's very attractive. So to me that signifies self-restraint, that signifies morality, that signifies that he's not going to well, that signifies that he's not going to go and cheat on me too, to me at least.
Yeah. It is a statistic that there is a statistic that says married couples with a partner that has a body count bigger than 5 or at least 4, they have higher rates of divorce and they have much lower satisfaction.
Wow, actually, I would love to see that study, but yeah, I specifically I've only really dated virgins, and the one time I did not date a virgin was by far the worst relationship I've ever had. I mean, he was fucking horrible.
I could see so.
So, and I mean, he would constantly try and get me to sleep with him because he was just after the sex, and that's ultimately kind of what happens with those men. Is that it takes the pressure. What has happened with modern feminism? It's, I think, ultimately modern feminism backfired on women because now that women can take care of themselves, men don't feel the pressure to provide for their wives, and that kind of makes me mad because, like, fuck no, I don't want that. Like, I want to be the homemaker. I want to be the one that does the child rearing, and I want my husband to provide for me. I mean, that's, I think, a reasonable division of labor. I can make my husband happy because he can come home to a happy family, and he can come home to a nice meal, and he can come home to a clean home. I mean, that's really it. And what modern feminism has done is because both parents are out of the home, who's raising the kid? I mean, the internet now. I mean, that seems to be the common answer now, is the internet. And now we're seeing the after effects of a generation that has been raised on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot to say about the home.
Yes, we are currently reaching 1 hour and 13 minutes.
Ooh.
We have been talking for quite a while, and I forgot how much time has passed. Cruz has been invited to speak. You know what? Since I don't have anything else, I'll just let Cruz speak. Please don't put racial slurs. Please. Please and thank you.
He's gonna put
don't
racial
think you
slurs.
needed to say that. You made it you made it so much worse.
He's muted.
He's gonna say racial slurs now.
Yeah.
The sexual revolution and its consequences and its disaster for the
Oh my
What
What?
is that voice?
Are they a witch? Is this a witch?
No,
a witch trial?
he's reading out what he posted in chat.
Ooh, you could invite Childish and get the whole audience up here. Might add
Oh
something.
dear.
He's been
Absolutely.
real wanting to come up the whole time, so I don't know.
Childish. Oh, I'm scared. I'm scared of what Childish might say.
Oh dear.
Why? I mean, you did the other one about racial slurs, so I don't think it can be worse than Childish. I mean, he's a libertarian.
Well, yeah.
So it can't be that bad.
He also hasn't filled out verification.
He might get mad. He might get banned at me. I think that might be it. I'd be like, ooh.
Cruz, bro, I got a shitty mic.
The sexual revolution.
It's been enjoyable, but I do have to go.
Alrighty.
Later, Mr. NATO.
Later.
Bye.
Hello, Childish.
Bro left.
Wow.
All right. I think this is probably the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I think this is it. I'll go ahead and go with the outro. Alrighty. Well, that was a very interesting conversation. It was much better than the last episode. Thankfully, unfortunately. Yeah, this has been your host, Joshua Sheffield, with Elias and company. And yeah, I hope you have a good time. As always, have a good night, sleep tight. Don't let the government bite.
Oh, don't let the government bite. That's funny.
We are the
All right.
daughters of the people who have his statue in the Walmart pocket.
All right.
All right. Later.
Bye.